this made me so angry at this book, because up to that point, Isabel's motivations hadn't been so flat as like, I'm doing this because I love Mort. No, Isabel's motivations had been rich and complex. Hey Frizzle fellows! So, Mort by Terry Pratchett. It is my first foray into the Discworld novels. Well, no, that's not true. I tried to start with The Color of Magic a few years ago and made it like 10 pages. But this time I consulted a where to start guide on the internet and chose Mort as my starting place because it seemed like the one I'd be most interested in reading. Which is why it's bonus disappointing that I didn't really enjoy this book. But I do have good things to say about it, and so we are going to do this compliment sandwich style. So some of the things I liked about it, then the things I didn't really like about it, and then some of the things I liked about it again at the end, just to tie it all together and keep it generally positive. Because, though for a large portion of this book I wasn't really hooked, I did get hooked eventually, and here is what did it for me. When Mort started turning into death, and I understand that might not make much sense if you've never read the book, so quick plot summary. Mort is Mortimer, a teenage boy in need of an apprenticeship. Death is literally the Grim Reaper in need of an apprentice. So, apprentice, master, bada bing, bada boom, various shenanigans ensue, including Mort starting to turn into a little bit of a Grim Reaper himself as he takes on more and more of the duties of death. And the reason that this hooked me was, by that point, even if I wasn't super interested in all the plot, I was interested in the fate of Mort, our main character. And a portion of this book is exploring how Death is unsatisfied with his job as Death, kind of hinting that Death would like to stop being Death, and so maybe Mort could just take over. And because I care about Mort, I don't want this for him. Because we see how unsatisfied Death is with this job, and he's been doing it for eons. So could a curious teenager really do it well? Probably many disasters would actually ensue, as they kind of do in this book. But the moment when Mort first spoke in small caps, which is how Death speaks in these books, it piqued my interest. And then when Mort started sliding more and more into various Death characteristics as Death himself lost these characteristics, I was genuinely worried that Mort would become the Grim Reaper, and this would just create more problems. So, good suspense there, good mystery, I liked it. But overall, I didn't super love this book, and I think a big part of that is that absurdist humor isn't really for me. It just never really clicked with me, and here it didn't really click with me. Like, I didn't think this book was funny. And I know that's a little bit of a controversial opinion, but that's my opinion. So if you're the kind of person who does really love absurdist humor, maybe take all of my critiques with a grain of salt. But also some of them are a little unrelated to that, so we'll get to that first. So, Death has an adoptive daughter, Isabel, who is a normal human being. And in the end of the book, Mort and Isabel end up together as a couple. I had many problems with this, of which I will now lay out. So the part of it I don't really have a problem with, but is interesting, is how this is kind of like a double punchline reversal of expectations. Because all throughout the book, everyone's hinting to Mort like, hey, you might get to marry the master's daughter, lots of apprentices end up that way. So there, it is lampshaded. The normal fantasy expectations is Mort would marry the master's daughter. However, this is Discworld. We are throwing all the normal fantasy expectations out the window. So, Mort and Isabel don't really have romantic attraction for each other. They're just friends / sometimes frenemies. And I loved their slow development of just a nice platonic friendship and the rejection of the trope of just kind of instant love, whatever. But then at the end of the book, after they have developed this nice platonic friendship, suddenly they're like, and we love each other, so marriage. There we go, the end. And so that's like another reversal of the expectations which were already reversed, right? So it's like a double joke. But the part of it I didn't like was how it undermined Isabel's character motivations. Because up to the end, Isabel had been very helpful to Mort, to helping him to perform the duties of Death, to helping him not become a Grim Reaper himself. And then at the end of the book, when Death asks her, like, hey, why are you helping Mort? And she says, because I love him. And this made me so angry at this book, because up to that point, Isabel's motivations hadn't been so flat as like, I'm doing this because I love Mort. No, Isabel's motivations had been rich and complex, about her wanting to help out in the world, about her wanting to not just be cooped up in Death's, alternate pocket dimension, about her wanting to help her new friend Mort, about her wanting to, I don't know, make the world better. She packed sandwiches. She was just being helpful, and it was awesome. And then suddenly it felt like all of her motivations were just flattened to loving a man. And the reason that this made me so mad is before that point, her motivations had been complex and 3D and like topographical. And then suddenly it's just like, no, it's because I love this guy and now we are married, the end. I'm not against them getting married in the end. They'll make an okay couple. But just the fact that the excuse for this was that it was her motivations all along made me feel like it was a disservice to her character. It was making her character less interesting, less complex, and more just like arm candy for Mort. Okay, now continuing on the vein of absurdist humor not really clicking with me, here are some examples. So in this book, multiple times, it becomes a plot point and thing mentioned that light is slow, so the sunset kind of goes gradually over the land, etc. I overthought this to death. I was thinking all of these things like, wait, does this mean that if you're seeing it, there's a delay? Like, obviously in our world there's also a delay, but it's so fast that it's like practically nothing. But then if light is slow, does that mean if you're watching something that's mildly far away, you're watching like in the past of what's really happening right then? And wouldn't that make like firing bows and arrows way harder because you are looking at a delayed thing and they could have already moved by the time you're firing, and what? And I think this is one of the things that just makes me not the right person to enjoy absurdist humor. I just think through it too much and I can't find the humor in it. But even outside of this absurdist humor disconnect between me and the book, there were also other parts in the book that I thought were just confusing and lacked good stakes because of it. For example, the final confrontation between Mort and Death, and are they fighting to the death question mark? And what exactly are they fighting over, and how do you even win this fight? See, these are all questions that the book doesn't really answer. And so, when the fight was happening, I was just like, I didn't have any emotional connection or investment in this fight because I didn't really understand what was on the line or how this was even working. It's just little things like that where the presentation of various plot points feels so rushed that I don't have the time to really understand what's happening. And because of that, I don't have the time to actually care about it. But now, switching gears again to things that I liked about this book, and I think this is what I liked about the book the very most, which was Death's character arc in this book. It's not a big one, but it was a very enjoyable one of Death kind of trying to find happiness in things outside being a Grim Reaper. And it was amusing to see Death try out various jobs and various things and just completely not understanding how to have fun, and then finally finds fulfillment in being a cook at a restaurant. And then even when Death goes back to being Death the Grim Reaper, because of his journey throughout the book, he's learned to be able to play a little looser with the rules to make things a little easier for Mort and Isabel. Because he's learned a little bit about the value of finding joy and satisfaction in your work. He broke the rules to go on his globe-trotting adventure, and everything kind of turned out good in the end, so why not bend some more rules? And though I don't think I'm motivated enough to read the next few books in this series, this point is what would make me interested to read the next few books in the series, is if I could further follow Death and see how he changes more and how he's going to break more rules in the future and how that might play out. Because that has piqued my interest. The Mort and Isabel plot, I'm still mad about them becoming a couple, so I'm gonna have to have some time to cool down before I can be interested in their plotline again. So if you made it to the end of the video, comment with a skull emoji, and let me know what you think of this book and of absurdist humor in general and the Discworld novels. Thanks for watching!